Have you ever felt lost, untethered, searching for something more? Welcome to Angelic Footprints, where the spirit meets the road on a journey to self-healing and rediscovery. I'm Dagmar, your host, psychic medium and seasoned traveler. Each week, we'll explore the world of angels and personal transformation. We're going to dive into compelling histories and captivating mythology. You're going to hear remarkable, real-life angel encounters and discover how you too can connect with the angels guiding your path. Whether it's through practical tips, meditation techniques, or stories that resonate deeply, Angelic Footprints is here to light your way. From mystical journeys to profound self-discovery, let's embark on this transformative journey together. Are you ready to find your angelic guide? Then subscribe to Angelic Footprints today and step into a world where angels walk beside you every step of the way. Angels, spirituality, healing, let's ignite your transformation. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Angelic Footprints podcast show. Today I want to take you to a very special city, the city of Munich, which happens to be the capital of Bavaria, situated in southern Germany. It is Bavaria's largest city and the third largest city in Germany after Berlin and Hamburg. It lies about 30 miles or 50 kilometers north of the edge of the Alps and along the Isar River, which flows through the middle of the city. Did you know that Munich, also known as München in German, means home of the monks, a name that stems from the Benedictine monastery founded in the area around the mid-8th century. Yes, there is evidence of settlements in the area dating way back to the Neolithic period, and the wider region of Bavaria has a history entwined in the Roman Empire. The first time that Munich was mentioned in a document was in 1158, and that is the date that is generally accepted as its foundation. Way back in 1157, Henry the Lion, who was a powerful German prince, gave Benedictine monks permission to set up a market along the Salt Road. He also built a bridge over the Isar River to connect it, destroying an earlier bridge in the process. By 1175, Munich had become an official city, and a protective wall was built around it. However, Henry's fortunes changed. He lost all of his power, and Munich came under the control of the Wittelsbach family, who ruled Bavaria for centuries, all the way until 1918. And during the medieval period, Munich grew both in size and wealth under the Wittelsbach dynasty. Although the city was severely damaged by fires in 1327 and again in 1429, some buildings from those rebuilding efforts still stand today. The Old Town Hall, that was completed in 1310, and the iconic Frauenkirche was finished in 1494. So as you can see, Munich has a pretty outstanding history. In 1506, Munich became the capital of Bavaria and grew into an important center for the German Counter-Reformation and the Renaissance arts. The city thrived until the 30 Years' War, when it was occupied by Swedish forces in 1642 and suffered a devastating plague that killed a third of its population. Now, one of the things that Germany, and in particular Bavaria, is well known for is the Oktoberfest. Germany has had a long history of brewing beer and was the first to introduce hops into the process. In 1516, Bavaria adopted something called the Reinheitsgebot, or purity law, which allowed beer to be made only from water, barley, and hops. You see, yeast hadn't been discovered yet. Now, this law solidified Munich's connection to beer, and some of the city's breweries date back to the Middle Ages. Weihenstephan Monastery, just outside Munich, started brewing in 1040 and is the world's oldest brewery, while Augustinerbräu in the city centre was founded in 1328. The first Oktoberfest was held in 1810 to celebrate the marriage of King Ludwig I of Bavaria and Princess Therese of Saxe-Hildburghausen. By the 19th century, Munich had become a booming centre for arts, literature and music, with many elegant neoclassical buildings added to the city. And while we're talking about history, Munich is known for having the Mad King. He is known as Ludwig II and is one of Bavaria's most historical figures. He was known as a dreamer, and he created some of the region's most iconic and extravagant castle. Think about Neuschwanstein Castle, to many people also known as the Disneyland Castle. It's famous for its romantic fairy tale design, and it is set upon a stunning hilltop where the palace is one of Germany's most photographed landmarks and a top tourist destination in Europe. Let's talk about some of the angels that you can find when you are visiting this beautiful city. Now, there are angels in Marienplatz, and Marienplatz has been the center, the heart of Munich since the city was founded by Henry the Lion in 1158. It was there where the city's most important streets came together and served as the center of Munich's daily life for centuries. Even today, Marienplatz remains a popular gathering spot, marking the start of the pedestrian zone and the point from which distances in the city are measured. In the center of Marienplatz is a bronze statue of the Virgin Mary, and this was created by Renaissance sculptor Hubert Gerhardt in 1593. It was originally made for Duke Wilhelm V's grave and later placed on the high altar of Munich's Frauenkirche until 1613. Inspired by the traditional shrine to Mary in Loreto, the statue shows Mary holding baby Jesus and standing on a crescent moon. At the base of the Mariensäule, Mary's column, there are 4 cherubs that represent Mary's victory over challenges. There is one representing hunger, also seen as a dragon, war, which is seen as the lion, plague, represented by the basilisk, and heresy, the snake. So if you're in Marienplatz, don't just look up at the beautiful glockenspiel, also look at the cherubs that are lining the altar at the bronze statue of the Virgin Mary. Not far from Marienplatz is St. Michael's Church. Now, also known as Michaelskirche in German, it is a Jesuit church in Munich's pedestrian zone, and it is the largest Renaissance church north of the Alps. It's located roughly halfway between Karlsplatz and Marienplatz and is one of Munich's most important churches. Between 1583 and 1597, Duke Wilhelm V had Michaelskirche built as a symbol of the Catholic Counter-Reformation and dedicated to the Archangel Saint Michael. The church was inspired by Il Gesù, the Jesuits' main church in Rome. But when finished, Michaelskirche was even larger. It has a 20-meter wide barrel vault, which is particularly impressive, making it the second largest cantilever barrel vault in the world, after St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. What I particularly loved is that there is an absolutely magnificent, impressive bronze statue of Archangel Michael battling Lucifer, and this stands at the front between the two entrances. Curiously, it's very similar to a statue that I have sitting here in my study in my home. This sculpture in the entrance to the church was created by Dutch sculptor Hubert Gerhard. Another statue also created by Hubert Gerhard was an angel, and it's standing inside the church. It is an angel with holy water font, cast in bronze. The main altarpiece has a painting of Archangel Michael fighting Lucifer, and this painting is created by Bavarian painter Christoph Schwarz. The church is also the resting place of several members of the Wittelsbach family, including King Ludwig II. He was buried there on the 19th of June 1886 and remains the most frequently visited member of his family. So if you're in Munich, do get to check out St. Michael's Church and the beautiful attributes to this archangel. I want to take you now to the Angel of Peace. She's also known as the Goddess of Victory, and it is a 38-meter high monument of Nike, the Greek goddess of victory, and it's a bit like the city's guardian angel. She calls for peace. This beautiful golden statue towers atop a 23-meter Corinthian column in the middle of the Maximiliansanlagen, which is a park with mighty trees in the district of Bogenhausen. The 6-meter high golden angel holds an olive branch in her right hand as a symbol of peace. In her left hand, she holds a figure of the goddess Athena, representing warfare and wisdom. The temple beneath measures 8 meters by 8 meters and features 4 golden mosaics that depict war, victory, peace, and cultural blessings. Its cornerstones are adorned with portraits of previous emperors, chancellors, and generals like Emperor Wilhelm I and King Ludwig II. This magnificent bronze statue was created by the sculptors Heinrich Dull, George Pesold, and Max Heilmeyer. Now, apparently the statue was once in grave danger as the Friedensengel threatened to collapse some decades after it had been unveiled on the 16th of July, 1899. It was dismounted for safety reasons in 1981. It suffered serious damage in the process, and so it was only able to return to its place in 1983, where it stands. It now has a significantly stronger pillar and 2 new wings that are steeper than the previous ones, and they have a span of 5 meters. The city of Munich mended and polished all of its intricate features again to mark its 100th anniversary in 1999. Not far from the Angel of Peace, or known as the Friedensengel, is the Maximilianum Foundation. Now, this foundation helps gifted high school graduates from Bavaria and the Palatinate by providing free room and board so they can study in Munich without financial worries. The foundation was established by King Maximilian II, who had the Maximillennium built in 1852 as a residence for students. Today, it is a famous Munich landmark and has been home to the Bavarian State Parliament since 1949. Why do I mention this particular building? Because the decorated facade is topped with a statue of an angel. Now, this building was designed by Friedrich Bürklein and completed in 1874, and it sits at the grand end of Maximilianstraße. I'd like to now tell you about one final monument, which unfortunately is not present anymore, but its history is important. I want to talk about the East-West Church in Munich. And this is a story that I heard from my cousin while I was staying in Germany. Now, the East-West Peace Church, also known as the Church of Father, was a chapel in the Olympia Park in Munich. The church was built by the Russian hermit Timofey Vasilyevich Prokhorov and his wife Natasha without a building permit in the 1950s. Way back during World War II, Timofey said that he had a vision of Mary in which he was instructed to move west from Russia to build a church there in Munich. After the church was completed, Timofey offered it to several priests for worship services. However, no church was willing to recognize it. Catholics criticized its Orthodox elements, while Russian Orthodox priests pointed out its Catholic features. Timothy's answer to that was, "The Mother of God did not ask me to build another Orthodox or Catholic church. She asked for a Christian church, a church for unification." 2 years after the completion of the church, a miracle occurred. Timothy stepped out of the house and saw that, as if by a miracle, everything around the church was shrouded in mist. From the horizon, millions of people were gathered. They stood around a hill, and above the hill, on a cloud, stood Archangel Michael. Timothy rushed into the house to fetch Natasha, and she joined him outside. Archangel Michael and the people were still there. Archangel Michael apparently looked exactly as is depicted in the iconic pictures of him, dressed in a long robe with 6 wings. He was speaking to the people, and after his words, a thick mist descended over the field, and when it lifted, Archangel Michael and the multitudes of people were gone. On Sunday, June the 11th, 2023, at around 1:10 a.m., the Munich Fire Department was alerted to a fire on the Tollwood grounds. When the emergency services arrived, the church was already in flames and had burned down completely. The police assumed that the cause of the fire was the presence of a technical defect in the installed electronics inside the church building. According to BR24, a German public broadcaster, from June the 11th, 2023, the former mayor of Munich, Christian Ude, publicly advocated the reconstruction of the East-West Peace Church. He had previously called the church the most charming black building in Munich, and he wants to have it reconstructed as a symbol of hope for peace. I truly hope that at some time in the future, you will all be able to go back to this reconstructed building to see the magic of the East-West Church in Munich. You'll have to let me know if you go, if it is reconstructed, and hopefully I'll be able to give you an update myself at some point. So there you have it, a history, a very brief history of Munich, but also some wonderful angels that you can get to see in this old Bavarian city. In the meantime, if you found this episode valuable, please share information about the show with 3 people who you believe would find it beneficial. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a 5-star review on the platform where you're listening. Until the next episode, blessings, and may your life be filled with hope and inspiration. Hello and welcome to the Angelic Footprints podcast show. Today I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Sally Ann from Heaven's Light Wellness, and she has over 4 decades of a dedicated practice. And with that, Sally Ann brings a wealth of experience to the field of holistic healing as a mindfulness and gratitude expert. She's also a guardian angel communicator, a clairvoyant psychic medium, a seasoned Reiki master, and an intuitive life coach. She has guided countless individuals on transformative journeys towards self-discovery and well-being, along the way offering intuitive angel readings and Reiki energy healing for insight and support along the way. Sally Ann, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome, welcome. Would you like to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself that maybe I haven't covered?
I know, it sounds like a lot, right? Thank you for having me. I just feel really blessed in the work that I do. So I have been doing this for over 40 years, but I decided, I think I got a lot of guidance 10 years ago to do this 100% of the time. So I was in the corporate world, loved my corporate life, but knew that there was something else out there. And about 8 years ago, I feel like I got this, let's say let's say a whole bunch of moments. Sometimes I say like God smacked me around. He was tired of waiting for me, and had this experience that helped me leave the corporate world and do this 100% of the time because I just had support. I knew I felt a little lost and was starting to get a little itchy, like when you need to go on vacation or need to change your life up, and was feeling a little kind of itchy about that, and was talking to a friend. I was doing Reiki on her feet. She had plantar fasciitis. So I was helping her with her feet. And I said, I'm a little frustrated. I feeling, antsy and not as fulfilled as I normally do. And I would only work in places that I loved. If I didn't love it, you give it a shot. But like after 6 months, it's still going to be what it is. So if you can't change it, I would move on. And I was very, very blessed with a couple of really amazing positions that I stayed at for almost decades. And I was like, oh, I'm feeling antsy. And my girlfriend said, well, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I looked at her, I was like, what? And she's like, here, you're healing me. This is what you do on the side for friends. This is what you need to do 100% of the time. And it was really my like aha moment to go forward and do that. And that's what I did. I called up my vice president and I said, hey, we need to figure out an exit plan. And she was like, what? And I'm like, it's time. I told you 10 years ago I would do this until it wasn't fun anymore. And it's time. It's time for me to exit. And so was really grateful at the transition. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was a little freaked out for about 6 weeks. I'm like, what am I doing? But really it all worked right back into place. And it's perfect.
I love the way that you said, I think you said God, but whether we call it God or spirit, they smack you around is because they want to give you that big push into what you're meant to be doing. And our stories are very similar. I too have a background in corporate, and I get totally what you're talking about. And I'm sure that there will be listeners out there who can identify with that story. Tell me, you talked about having angelic experiences, specifically a few. Would you like to share a couple of those with our listeners, please?
I'd be honored because I think we're just all not sure of how it's supposed to affect us, right? Or how it's supposed to hit. And I will tell you that my first, I'm going to call it aha moment, was in early 20s. I was in college. I loved college. I was in a really great space and had great friends. And we were out after, having a drink or two at pub. And we went to this pizza restaurant on campus. And I remember looking across the restaurant and there was a gentleman standing in the corner, someone I didn't know. He looked like he probably worked there because he was definitely not a college student. And Dogma, I felt sadness and despondency and all the things that I knew Sally Ann, did not feel. So I didn't understand what that feeling was. And back then I said, okay, I got to go, left my girls, ran back to the dorm room and had to call my mom. Okay, pre-cell phones. I'm dating myself, but yes. And I remember I called my mother and I was like, okay, I am having a nervous breakdown. I was like, you have to come get me. She's like, what's going on? Like, tell me the story. So I was explaining that these emotions hit me that I didn't recognize. Back then, they didn't have a word for empath, but that's what I was. That's how it woke me up, is these feelings of other people. And it still hits really strong, either really good or really bad, but I've learned to control it. But it was really like my awakening. Now, thank goodness I had a mother who was supportive, who kind of like was, I told her the whole story and she was like, ugh, you're fine. You're just psychic. And I was like, what? What? What are you talking about? Like, not a word ever really used in my house. But, when you grow up and you don't know what you don't know?
Yes.
Right? Like, my mother would pick up the phone and knew who was on the phone before caller ID, right? Like, my grandmother used to, oh my God, my grandmother, she's hysterical. So she'd come and seek me out and she'd be like, okay, so I had this dream and this is going to happen to you. And don't do X, do Y. Well, you're 18-year-old kid. Sure enough, the next day, what your grandmother described shows up and you do X, you don't do Y. I'm like, grandma, guess what? This happened. She's like, smacks me on the top of the head like any good Sicilian grandmother would and says, don't do it again. And then 3 days later, she comes, I had a dream and this is what's going to happen. And then you realize, oh my gosh, there's something else. Well, I just thought that's how life was, right? Like, I just always thought that people in your family would say, hey, these things are going to happen, do this. I didn't know that it was like a gift that God gave us, family or universe source, however you feel comfortable with that higher power. And so when my mother kind of said, oh, yeah, no, you're just psychic, I was like, oh, I get it. I get it. Like that was my light bulb, and really kind of went into training within a month. I just turned 20 years old and I get to learn to understand who my guardian angels are, what they mean to me, how I talk to them every day, some a little past life stuff even, which all resonate so strongly to me. I'm like, I get it. I understand it. And, I'm blessed because I am open to it. And that's what I tell a lot of my clients is, okay, now that you've come, now you're open to it. You've kind of cracked the door open. So be open to what comes, right? Accept what comes, understand what comes in. Because I think that's our little introduction to know that there's something else out there to, maybe I'm going to say, develop faith. I always thought I was a faithful person, but 10 years out of the corporate world doing what I'm doing 100% of the time, I am like, holy moly's, I have almost no fear in my life because I know it's going to just work out. And it's comforting. It's not frightening. It's really comforting. And, I've been able to use this gift through my corporate career and personal career. It's just amazing. I do think of it as a gift. I have an amazing life. I'm very grateful for it every single day.
I so hear you on that. And it is a gift. And to be able to share that with others is truly, truly amazing. And it's through these stories, you're not the first one to come onto the show and tell me about the magic that you feel when you can connect with that spiritual part of yourself and really experience those beautiful gifts, whether it's being an empath, a clairvoyant, or, even just talking to people. I find that there is a magic in having a conversation about exactly what we're talking about. And just that conversation that we're having today someone might at the other end of this podcast think to themselves, oh, wow, I so get that. And that might be that crack in the door, as you say, that opens someone else up to, living this beautiful life in a different way. As you said, it's not just about the life that we're living, it's so much more, isn't it?
It really is.
Tell me, in terms of your own life, you've talked a little bit about how that's influenced your life, but how would you say that it influences the people that you work with?
Well, so when I was in the corporate world, the funny thing is, I used to put events together for a large venue, and we were always very philanthropic. I always had to pull in philanthropic into it because if you can, you should. That's my motto. If I can give, I will. And so I remember saying to people that I worked with, yeah, we just talked to a movie studio about this movie. I want a hot air balloon. And they were like, what? And I'm like, yep, I want a hot air balloon. We're going to get a hot air balloon. We're going to do an event. The very next morning, I was in my office and I get like an intercom and they were like, you need to talk to this person right now. I'm like, yeah, what's going on? They're like, it's the Boy Scouts. They're here and they have a hot air balloon. I was like, well, that was fast manifestation. I mean, it happened.
Absolutely.
So, things like that happen. So this way we were able to help the Boy Scouts and another charity and help people we never even saw or talked to or touched, right? But we did touch their lives. On broad scales, those things happen. And then on more intimate scales, I had a client once and this woman came in and I said, hey, great to meet you. Honored to be here. How did you find me? And she fans out 3 of my business cards. And she says, 3 people that don't know each other, that know me, 3 people in 1 week gave me your card. I think I should be here. And I was like, I agree. When she left, and she's been back a number of times, but it was a hard time in her life. Her husband had just passed very unexpectedly, and she was trying to process it. It's funny because when she comes to me, she barely says a word during a session. I have people record it because, I'm just the telephone to your guardian angel. So I don't remember. It's not for me to remember. It's for your life. And one time, I think it was like the 3rd or 4th time I said, is everything okay? Like, I notice you don't say anything during the session. And she goes, I don't want my voice on it. I only want yours. I'm like, okay, that's not typically the way I talk to my clients. Typically, it's a conversation kind of like we're having now, and they overall feel better, right? The goal is for the person on the other side to have things resonate with them and be able to ask questions and, to get closure. Sometimes it's closure. I have had literally clients look different when they've walked out the door. Almost like not recognize them as the person I've been talking to for an hour because of how they get to change or release or, yeah, I guess release is a really great way to put it, right? Some clients sob, some clients just change because the burden has left them, the burden that they think has been put on them for some reason or someone else has put on them or we've put on ourselves, right? So it's really fascinating. I've been so blessed, but I know that when I get response back or that immediate response, it's fascinating. It's amazing the connections that, as you know, talking to guardian angels, talking to spirit, and what that does for humans here. I think one of the biggest things that I hope that my clients walk away with or that I want to gift them is permission to live the life that they think they deserve, permission to live the life that they should, permission to walk through. I call them doors, right? The opportunities that walk in front of us that we have to walk through that door so we can grow and become better people. That's like the biggest gift that I can give someone is to say, here's this angel door. Here's this God door. Walk through it. I promise you what's on the other end is better. I promise you that being stuck here and walking around that door is just keeps showing up. So let's walk through the door so you can move on with your life, feel unstuck, know that you deserve more.
And that's absolutely right. And I think in these difficult times, a lot of people find themselves in a place where they don't want to be in, but they're afraid to open that door. They're afraid to step away from the familiarity of that job, that paycheck, that anything that is a block in their life. And I think you and I, being light workers in so many different ways, can help people really with that. Sally Ann, thank you for sharing what you do for people and how that has influenced yourself and others. Is there something that you would like to share with our listeners about anything that you would like to pass on to them in terms of your own platform, or any specials that you might have for them in terms of an offer?
Yes, I would love to offer your listeners some opportunities. Everything is Heaven's Light Wellness on all social media. We have a YouTube channel, so once a month we'll distribute or we'll record a themed event. So that's on YouTube. We follow a similar format for all social media. So we're on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. And then also heavenslightwellness.com, where you can sign up for a newsletter. We don't send out a lot of emails, once a month, maybe twice a month, just to gift information. It's really important to me to gift information to people, so this way then they can make decisions for themselves. They can empower themselves. They can be who they need to be. So heavenslightwellness.com. And weekly I do these angel card pulls. So I have a deck of angel cards that I've produced with some help from above, and they're all positive affirmations. I shuffle the cards and put in energy into the cards and say, okay, this week, the people that see this, this is the message they need to get. And then it'll be a positive affirmation from angels above to help you through the week. But I'd also love to gift, especially in January. Times are harder in January, I think, after the holidays, or fiscalness, if you will. But you can get a $20 gift card by texting 20 to my text line, which is 480-685-4411. I love repetitive numbers, angel numbers, right? So it's a US number, so it's a 1. So +1 480-685-4411. And then just text 20 and you'll get a $20 gift card for your next appointment. So, and you can decide whatever it wants to be. There's a whole bunch of stuff on our website.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sally Ann. And thank you for that special offer to our listeners. I hope that you do take Sally Ann up on her offer. We will get this show out in due course, obviously. And I want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing the information. I think that's so crucial to help people to be able to say, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to accept this into my life. And we do that with gratitude. Is there anything else that you would like to add today, Sally Ann?
Yes, I want to make sure that everybody knows that they really are loved.
That is so beautiful. Absolutely. And I think, you and I doing readings and connecting with people, it really does bring that forth, that whether it's our angels, whether it's our loved ones in spirit, that really do bring back that beautiful love into your heart, and where you feel that even if you've got challenges, you can definitely move on. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. In the meantime, if you found this episode valuable, please share information about the show with 3 people who you believe would find it beneficial. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a 5-star review on the platform where you're listening. Until the next episode, blessings, and may your life be filled with hope and inspiration. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Angelic Footprints podcast. Today, I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Cindy Grogan. She is known as the Sensible Psychic. She's a professional writer, psychic medium, and animal communicator. She studied at Lilydale Assembly in New York, the Omega Institute, and with Audrey Willey of the Woodland Sanctuary Spiritualist Foundation in Australia. She's also studied mediumship at the prestigious Arthur Findlay College in the UK. Cindy is known as the sensible psychic for her plain-spoken, down-to-earth approach. She's the author of 2 books, Okay, So You're Dead, A Sassy Guide to the Afterlife, and Your Pet Has Died. Now what? She comes without further introduction and without further ado. Welcome, Cindy, to the show.
Thank you, Dagmar. It's so much fun to be with you. And I remember that's how you and I met, was at Arthur Findlay.
Absolutely. And, so many experiences, so many years that I've known you. I'd love to hear about some of your angelic experiences so that our listeners can hear your story.
Okay, well, I kind of got into the psychic metaphysical world back in the 80s. Just by accident, I took a psychic development course and it was just for fun. But that night just changed everything. Started getting information. I was just all in. So I spent the following years studying, reading everything I could get my hands on, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, in the 80s, the New Age movement was really picking up, and angels were a very big part of it. I was a little bit agnostic about angels because the way they were being presented were, oh, they were so cute and they were so sweet and so gentle and kind of squishy. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's really what I can cotton to. However, there was an experience that sort of changed my thinking. I was working at a really crappy job in Manhattan, and I was living in Queens, and I drove home in my tiny little Honda Civic, and I was mad and frustrated and just really annoyed just with everything. And it was nighttime, and I pulled into a gas station. Now, where I lived in Queens was kind of sketchy. Not really a very nice part, but it was the 80s. I wasn't making any money. That's where I lived. So I pull into this gas station that I'd stopped at all the time, and this guy come it was dark, I can still see the lights, shining onto the pumps, and this guy comes up to pump my gas. I'd never seen him before. He was an old man. He was brown-skinned, very dark. I thought maybe he was Indian, with very white hair. And I rolled down my window and I said, $10 regular cash, please. And I just was grumpy, and he looked in and he says, it's going to be all okay, don't you? And I was like, excuse me? Why are you talking to me? Just pump my gas. And I watched him and I could see it struck me as so odd because it seemed like this is not something a total stranger says to you. But I was watching him pump my gas and I swear to God, I'm looking at his hair. And granted, it was very white and there were lights on, but he was literally glowing. And I thought, all right, this is just weird. But when I handed him my money, he touched my hand and he said, really, it's going to be okay. And I was like, wow, thank you. And I never saw that guy at that station again. That's always where I went. And I remember feeling so struck by it that I went home and I called my friend who was also on the metaphysical path with me. And she goes, oh, you just met an angel. I'm like, get out of here. She goes, no, seriously, you did. She goes, how do you feel now? And I said, I feel a lot more hopeful. I feel better. If nothing else, it was a very kind thing to say, but it was really out of the blue. And that moment stayed with me. And sure enough, things did start to get better after that. I got a better job, things started to pick up. But it just was such a standout moment that, 40 some years later, I can still recall. I mean, I can't remember what I had for breakfast, but I can remember that and all the details that went with it. So from then on, I started viewing angels in a less Hallmark card way and more like they are among us in a much more practical and to some extent muscular way. They're not, floating around. They're down here helping us in very practical, physical ways.
I love that story. It is amazing, and it just doesn't fail to amaze me how many times I've spoken to guests and the stories are very similar. And I hope our listeners can see that pattern starting to occur when you open your heart and your mind up to the possibility that this is
Mhm.
real, all of a sudden magical things happen. And your story is, it's wonderful. And as you said, it made you feel more hopeful. I'm sure you've had other experiences. Are there other experiences that you wanted to share with us as well?
Yes, actually, this did not happen to me, but this happened to my best friend at the time. She was living on Long Island, and she used to like to go down to the beach because it's right there. And she called me right after this happened. She'd gone into the water. She'd gotten caught in a riptide. Now, there are lifeguards on those beaches, but for whatever reason, they weren't noticing her. And she was really panicking. She thought she was going to drown. And she said literally she was looking around, looking around, looking around, and then all of a sudden there was somebody right there in the water next to her. Didn't say a word, just grabbed her and got her back up to shore. Now, she was obviously shaken, but she turned and all of a sudden that person was not there. And she told me this story, and I was like, "Really?" She's like, "Yeah, I swear to God, nobody really noticed. He just sort of brought her back up on shore. There was no people running over like, 'Oh my God, are you okay?' None of that. He just got her to shore, and then he was no longer there." And she walked up and down the sand after she got herself together to see if maybe he was nearby, never saw him. And she says, "I couldn't describe him to you, but I just remember the sensation of him grabbing onto my upper body, and she says, I felt like I could relax in his arms." And then all of a sudden, she was up on shore, she had her feet under her, sat down and, took a breath, looked around, and he was gone. So, I thought that was very cool. I mean, you always hear about they show up in moments of crisis, and he definitely showed up for her. So, that was pretty wild. And sort of circling back to the way I look at angels, I have well, you've been to my house. I have a lot of angel statues in my yard because I find them to be
Mhm.
pretty, but I also feel that they're good protectors. In fact, I have a habit at night when I go to bed at night. I envision I have one of them at each corner of my property holding a very big sword, sort of like my own personal alarm system. And it just makes me feel better. But when I envision them, I see them as tall and strong, and they do not mess around. They're benevolent and they're kind, but like I said, they're kind of muscular in their energy. They're not human. They're something completely different. One of my angels that I work with a lot when I do my readings is Archangel Michael. And I like him because he's good at cutting things loose that you don't need anymore. But the way he's been depicted is, he's got a big sword and he stands between you and danger. And I think about the angels, I guess it was Gabriel that announced the birth of Christ and scared the bejeepers out of those shepherds in the meadow. Angels throughout history and different traditions, they help dictate the Quran. They've done pretty impressive things. So their strength is just exceptional and strong. And I mean, they're organized like the military. I mean, there's all those different hierarchies. My overall take is angels are here to assist us for our sake as much as for the universe's sake, because let's face it, we've got to get our act together, and they can assist us and help develop our spiritual strength. So I tend to look at them as a combination of benevolence and strength and no nonsense. I kind of break it down to, it's like if you blended Queen Elizabeth, Alan Rickman, and Tony Soprano. That's what that to me is sort of sums sums up the overall approach of an angel. They love us. They're like a stern teacher that wants us to succeed, but they don't take any crap. And they're fearless and they want us to be fearless within reasons. I don't go for the whole Roma Downey touched by an angel thing. I want my angels with a little bit more meat on the bone. So that's how I view them.
Yeah, and that's one of the reason I thought you'd be a great guest for the show to help explain that, because you and I have had this conversation before about angels not necessarily being the whole cherub thing, and I'm so glad that you circled around to this as well.
Mhm.
I guess, would you agree that angels show up in a form that either we can recognize or that we can acknowledge?
Yeah, I think obviously, I think like our spirit guides and all those other helpers, there's got to be a connection between how we can recognize and work with them. If it's too overwhelming, we're going to be scared to death and we're not going to be open. If they're too cute and wobbly, we're just like, well, what could you really do for me? So I think it's somewhere in between where we recognize them, but we also know they're different than we are. And I think making that connection on a spiritual level is very reassuring. It's like, yeah, there's something more going on. We do have help. We don't have to do it all by ourselves. We are still responsible, but it's another indication of a connection to a greater source. And when they show up, like the dude at the gas station, that just made me feel better, and helped me reset my thinking so that I wasn't just, going to be hanging from a shower rod later that week within despair, or the one that saved my girlfriend, from certain drowning. It's magical, it's practical, it's reassuring, but you always have to have that bit of respect. They know a lot more than we do. So to reduce them to pictures you see of like a baby with the little wings on sitting in a flower pot, it's like, that doesn't do it for me. It's like, show some respect. That's where Tony Soprano comes in. Show some respect.
Well, it's a very good point. And I absolutely love your analogy that you gave today about the military hierarchy and having that military precision. I've never heard that before, and yet it makes absolutely so much sense when you think of all the different angels that are available to us. And it's not just about one kind of angel. There are many different kinds of angels, and this military thing, I really connect with that. That is an absolutely great analogy. Thank you for sharing that with us. One of the things that springs to mind too is we're talking about these stories, and without a doubt, there probably will be listeners who will go, do you know, I never thought about that it might have been an angel who helped me, saved me, or did something for me. And I'd say you're absolutely right that, for the most of us, angels come in at a time when we do just absolutely need them. Tell me, with the experiences that you've had, and I don't doubt that you speak to angels and your angelic guides when you're doing your readings, but what would you say is your key takeaway from these experiences? If you had to give our listeners a message, what is it that you would like to impart and share today?
Okay. Well, my sort of brand is the sensible psychic. And I started that because getting into the new age space, there was a lot of stuff out there. And my motto is like, I don't believe everything and neither should you, because there's some pretty crazy stuff in the metaphysical space. But angels are something I think I would want people to know. They are real. They are a thing. They are here. The whole purpose of us being here on this planet at this time is to evolve and grow and help each other, whether it's your friend, your neighbor, your town, your country, whatever. It's a collective effort. And the angels are a little bit like drill sergeants trying to get us into a better place to do that, not just for ourselves, but for other people. So I think the main thing to remember, just to accept that they do exist. They may not exist in the form or the way that you're expecting them to, but just acknowledging that they are an energetic, spiritual presence in our world, I think opens it up, opens you up to experience them. I would also add something, because my cat just came to sit down next to me. I think angels show up through our pets or through animals. I mean, any animal lover will tell you angel or pets or animals are just so much more elevated than we are. And I think in some ways they demonstrate angelic qualities of caring, soothing, protecting, reminding us of something bigger than ourselves, demonstrating that kind of higher way of being that I think is what all angels are trying to get us to do, to be better, to be more loving, more respectful of others' journeys, our planet, all of those things. And I think animals are a very sort of furry, angelic way to be reminded of that. So I like to think that they show us angelic behavior, even if they're being naughty. just the way that they interact with us, forgive us, love us unconditionally. Those are all qualities of angels as far as I'm concerned.
Cindy, that is an absolutely beautiful message. Thank you. And, me being a fellow cat lover, I absolutely 100% agree. And I'm sure that listeners out there would say, yeah, I can relate to that with my dog or my rabbit or whatever pet that they may have. And I
Mhm.
would I would definitely agree with that. I guess I'd love you to share just a little bit about what you do and tell us a little bit about yourself because you've made this beautiful appearance here today. I'd love our listeners to get in touch with you if there is something that they feel like you can help them with.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I never started out to be a professional psychic. I was just really interested in drilling down into all the other sources of information that are available to us that, life is hard and we tend to just try to carry it all on ourselves. And learning that there are other ways to access information to sort of smooth the way or get some perspective or any of that, that was the reason I got into it. I started reading professionally quite by accident, but I found that I love really helping people and I love giving them perspectives on all of these things they can access, from angels to spirit guides to loved ones on the other side to their animals. I love doing animal communication. And it's all about helping. But again, I try to keep it very practical because the whole point of it is, okay, you need a takeaway. You need something you can use and act on. So I do have a website, thesensiblepsychic.com, and I do have a Facebook page, The Sensible Psychic. And I love, interacting with my clients or just anybody that comes on the page, sharing information, sharing experiences like this. Because if nothing else, it's really cool. I mean, it's like, wow, talk about breaking up the humdrum when somebody says, "Oh yeah, an angel pumped my gas last night." I think that's fantastic. So I just and I'm a big fan of anytime I spot a feather, I'm like, "Oh, that's an angel. That's not necessarily my goose down mattress topper fluffing out. That's an angel." So yeah, all things angelic. And one of my favorite movies is It's a Wonderful Life. And I think Clarence, the angel that helps Jimmy Stewart, is kind of a good mix between being squishy and showing him, how wonderful his life is, but tapping the higher up angels with powers to show that to Jimmy Stewart's character. So I always watch that movie and I always feel better just because it's like, yeah, there's somebody watching over you. And yes, you have a guardian angel, but there's all these other angels that are willing to step in and help. In fact, I right after 9/11, I live right outside of New York City, and obviously it was a very dark time. And I found like a postcard, and it showed the globe being held in the arms of an angel, which I felt showed a healing because everybody, no matter where they were in the world, was affected by that, by the tragedy. And I take such I still have it. I take such comfort in that image because I feel like we don't have to do it. I mean, we do have to take responsibility, but we don't have to do it alone as long as we ask for help and then be open to it. And then when something is offered you, take advantage of it. And then most importantly, always say thank you. It's just good manners. But when you open yourself to these other entities that are here to advance us in our global course, our individual course, it adds some magic, but it also takes some of the weight off because let's face it, life is hard. It's just friggin' hard.
Life is hard. Life can be hard. And,
Mhm.
when we have challenges, I really hope that the listeners that have been tuning into the program today or in the future, that you really do connect with Cindy and that she can help you. If you're looking for someone who can give you some very practical advice and not just all the fluff, then please do get in touch with Cindy. She might even connect with your animals if that's something that you're looking for.
Mhm.
Cindy, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. And thank you very, very much for your time today. As a roundup, is there anything else that you would like to finish on today?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is fun. I could talk about this kind of stuff all day long, and you and I have, in fact, talked about stuff like this for hours. I guess I feel like the time that we're living through right now, let's face it, the last few years have been very, very difficult for everybody. And I personally feel that we are being tested. This is one of those critical times in history. People that lived through the Civil War, the Depression, wars, whatever. This is one of those times. And I feel that we're being tested and we can make a choice to take a slightly more elevated look at how we live, how we interact with each other. Being kind, being helpful, being loving, I think is so important to maintain our own mental health, but also to help raise our spirit and our vibration to move us forward in a positive way. I do think that we will come out of it, but yeah, you really got to eat your Wheaties to get through every day. So I think I just want everybody to think about how you do your day. It takes no effort at all to smile at somebody, to say thank you, to let somebody ahead of you in line at the grocery store, to let somebody cut in front of you on the highway, hopefully using their blinkers. Little things like that, I think, reach a critical mass of a positive vibration. And I think that's really what the angels want us to do. It's all about raising our vibration, but it doesn't mean you have to go off to some ashram. You could just do it every day. Just be kind, be thoughtful. Think twice before you want to say something mean to somebody. That's something I am having to work on a lot, especially now with all the politics going on. But angels want us to advance. So what little ways can you advance every day? It doesn't have to be huge. Just at the end of the day, you can say, I did something nice for somebody. I sent out some good energy. That's really what they want, but they're here to help us and to remind us of that. So it's a long-winded way of that's what I wanted to say.
You're absolutely right. There's an old saying, kindness costs nothing. And
Absolutely.
we've got a lot of craziness happening in the world around us. You are right. We probably are at a very pivotal time, and it is a good reminder for us to be nice to each other.
Mhm.
There's a lot of muck that we shouldn't have to wade through. So if we find a way of navigating our lives in a positive way, then hopefully we're going to share some of that positivity with others. Once again, Cindy, thank you so much for your time today. For all our listeners, thank you for tuning in. If you found this episode valuable, please share the information about the show with 3 people who you believe would find it beneficial. And if you really enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a 5-star review on the platform where you're listening. Until the next episode, blessings, and may your life be filled with hope and inspiration. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Angelic Footprints podcast. Today we're going to do something different because, as one of my daughter's friends reminded me, a lot of people don't know about some of the background to do with angels. And that means that today we're going to talk about the angelic hierarchy and how all of that has come about. I've used a number of different sources to bring you this information, whether it's from Christian websites or even from references to the Bible or other theological sources. Angels are powerful and supernatural beings who were created by God to serve Him and carry out His divine will. According to the Bible, they act as messengers, delivering God's messages to humans on earth or communicating with other angels in heaven. Angels are mentioned throughout both the Old and New Testaments, where they are depicted as beings divinely sent to perform duties on God's behalf. These beings were created by God before humans and are often described as having human-like forms with wings and faces resembling those of people. While angels can appear physically to humans, they are also capable of taking on other forms. In Christian tradition, angels are organized into ranks or spheres, each associated with different levels of existence. There are 9 ranks of angels grouped into 3 main categories. The highest ranks include the seraphim, cherubim, and thrones, and are linked to the highest level of heaven, often referred to as the third heaven. The 6 lower ranks incorporate dominions, virtues, powers, principalities, archangels, and angels, and they are often connected to lower planes. We're going to explore those a little bit more in a minute. The highest ranking angels, the seraphim, stand closest to God and often are considered his messengers. The Christian tradition offers further insights into the specific roles and duties of each choir of angels. From the highest to lowest, these ranks start off with the seraphim, and like I said before, they are the highest order of angels. They serve as attendants and guardians before God's throne. In the Bible, they're mentioned in Isaiah at paragraph 6, 1 to 7, where they praise God, saying, "Holy, holy is the Lord of hosts." These angels have 6 wings, 2 covering their faces, 2 covering their feet, and 2 used for flying. The second level down are the cherubim. These angels are described as man-like with 2 wings and serve as guardians of God's glory. In Revelation 4 to 6, they are portrayed as celestial attendants in the visions of the apocalypse. Next down are the thrones. The thrones represent humility, peace, and submission. They are mentioned in Colossians 1, paragraph 16, where Paul describes them as part of God's creation. Thrones serve as intermediaries, allowing lower-ranking angels to access God. Moving down to the 4th level are dominions, and dominions maintain order in the universe, delivering God's justice and assisting other angels in fulfilling their duties. They embody wisdom, authority, and governance while expressing God's mercy and love. Further down there are the virtues, known as the shining ones or spirits of motion. Virtues control the elements, perform miracles, and encourage humans to deepen their faith in God. Number 6 on our hierarchy are powers. Powers are warrior angels who defend humanity and the cosmos from evil. They restrain the devil and help people overcome temptation and evil forces. Principalities are the next level down. These angels oversee nations, cultures, and institutions, ensuring that divine orders are carried out. They act as leaders for groups and direct the fulfillment of God's will. The next level down are archangels. Archangels deliver significant messages to humanity. Archangel Michael is known for protecting the church and expelling Lucifer from heaven, while Gabriel announced Christ's incarnation to the Virgin Mary. Raphael, mentioned in the book of Tobit, healed Tobit and delivered Sarah from a demon. The final on our list of the hierarchy, number 9, are angels. Angels are the closest to humans and the material world. They deliver prayers to God, assist those who seek help, and provide guidance and comfort. Guardian angels, in particular, are believed to protect and watch over individuals throughout their lives. The Bible emphasizes the vast number of angels in heaven. Revelation 5:11 and Daniel 7:10 describe thousands upon thousands of angels surrounding God's throne. While these numbers, they're not meant to be taken literally, but they do convey the idea that the number of angels is beyond human comprehension. Hebrews 12:22 also speaks of an innumerable company of angels, highlighting their abundance and majesty. Once upon a time, Lucifer was the highest ranking angel. He was powerful, beautiful, and held great authority. However, he became the devil, also called the destroyer or the light bringer. Now Michael is the strongest and highest ranking angel. Even though he was not as powerful as Lucifer, he defeated him and became the leader of heaven's armies. Michael is now known as the Viceroy of Heaven and the bearer of the flaming sword. There are other scriptural references and Christian traditions that offer a glimpse into the divine plan for angels. The Summa Theologiae by Thomas Aquinas and De Coelesti Hierarchia by Pseudo Dionysius explore the nature, roles, and hierarchy of angels, providing a real comprehensive framework for understanding their purpose. Together, all of the sources reveal a celestial order where angels serve as instruments of God's will, bringing messages, performing miracles, and offering protection to humanity. Now, angels might also variously be known as messengers, watchers, otherwise known as supervisors for God, military hosts, sons of the mighty, sons of God, and chariots. There is an interesting website that I thought you might like to have a look at. Specifically, it's Tuco, which is tuko.co.ke. And it tells us about several names of angels and God duties, again, according to the Bible. Let's have a look at the 17 on this list. The first angel mentioned is Gabriel, the angel of revelation and announcements. Angel number 2 is Michael, the leader of the heavenly host and the protector of God's people. Number 3 is Raphael, the angel of healing and travelers. Number 4, Uriel, the angel of wisdom and light. He watches over thunder and terror. Serachiel is number 5, the angel who watches. Number 6 is Raguel, archangel of justice, fairness, and harmony. Number 7, Ramiel, angel of forgiveness and hope. Phanuel, the angel of repentance. Number 9 is Azrael, who is responsible for transporting the deceased's soul after death. Number 10, Zadkiel, helps people approach God for mercy. Number 11, Camael, the archangel of strength, courage, and war. Number 12, Jeremiel, encourages people to learn from their mistakes and seek new directions. Barachiel is the angel of lightning and blessings. Hanuel is angel number 14, who directs people searching for fulfillment to God. Number 15 on the list is Jegodiel, gives encouragement, wisdom, and strength to people working for God's glory. Number 16, Jophiel, helps people learn how to think beautiful thoughts. And final, number 17 is Ariel, who oversees the healing and protection of animals and plants. Now, like I said, essentially, there are thousands and thousands of angels. This is but a small list because remember, we all are said to have our own guardian angels, and then we have many angels to call on to help us and protect us. Angels remind us of God's active presence in our lives, especially during difficult times. Guardian angels, in particular, offer comfort and divine intervention, serving as constant companions and advocates. There are even moments when angels may visit us, providing encouragement and support when we need it most. In today's episode, I've given you many references to different angels, and most come from the Bible or from other theological sources. Even if you don't believe in the Bible or some of those scriptures, that's okay. Today's episode is more about giving you an insight of the history and where some of this angel knowledge about the angels and their hierarchy comes from. I really do hope that you've enjoyed today's episode. And if you found this particular episode valuable, please share the information about the show with 3 people who you believe would find it beneficial. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a 5-star review on the platform where you're listening. You might also find yourself at a crossroad in your life, and if you are looking for guidance and inspiration, I'd love to help you find your path with a spiritual angel reading. Contact me on info@dagmarbryant.com for more information and to make a booking. Until the next episode, blessings, and may your life be filled with hope and inspiration. Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Angelic Footprints podcast. Today I'm taking you on a journey to a very special city, a city that has been on my bucket list for a very long time. And the place that I'm taking you to is Vienna. Now, I only recently got the opportunity to go there, and I want to share a little bit about the history of Vienna, not so much the politics or anything like that, but more about the ancient city and its development in terms of buildings so that you get an appreciation for what this beautiful city is all about. Let's go back to the ancient city of Vienna and how it's grown over the years. Now, apparently, there's been evidence of human settlement in Vienna that dates back to the Paleolithic period, which is basically the Stone Age. Over time, the area became home to the Illyrians and later the Celtics. In 16 to 15 BCE, Roman forces led by the future Emperor Tiberius occupied the Alpine foothills. By the following century, the Celtic town of Vindobona, which means white field, later evolved into Vienna, and this had become a crucial Roman military outpost. The Roman camp likely covered the present-day Hohermarkt. At its peak, Vindobona housed approximately 15,000 people and thrived as a hub for trade and communication. It is believed that Emperor Marcus Aurelius died there in 180 CE while defending against Germanic tribes. Though the Roman rule ended with the invasions of the 5th century, enough of Vindobona remained to lay the foundation for the medieval city. The Bavarians later settled in the region, introducing Christianity. Historical records first mention the city's name as Wenia in 881 and Venus in 1030. From 1156 to 1246, the Babenberg dynasty of Frankish origin ruled over Vienna, establishing it as a major trading centre. Crusaders passing through the city purchased supplies and equipment, further boosting commerce. In the 13th century, city walls were constructed, and Vienna remained largely enclosed within these fortifications until the 18th century. The Babenbergs fostered a vibrant cultural scene, attracting artists like the renowned minstrel Walter von der Vogelweide. During the Renaissance, Vienna emerged as a centre for science and the fine arts with its university, founded in 1365, fostering many different types of ideals. The 16th century Reformation brought religious upheaval across Europe. The Peace of Augsburg in 1555 recognized Lutheranism but granted regional rulers authority over religious practices. In Vienna, Catholicism remained mandatory, forcing many Protestant residents to leave. During this period, the medieval walls were replaced by new fortifications, and the Hofburg Palace underwent expansion. The grandeur of Baroque architecture reinforced Vienna's status as an imperial city. In 1679, a devastating bubonic plague outbreak killed nearly a third of Vienna's population. By the early 18th century, opulent palaces and grand residences transformed the urban landscape. In 1704 to 1706, an additional line of fortifications, the Linien Wall, was built to protect Vienna's expanding suburbs. Prominent architects like Johann Bernhard Fischer von Erlach, his son Joseph Emanuel, and Lucas von Hildebrand left lasting marks on Vienna's skyline. During this era, an influx of immigrants and the rise of manufacturing signaled Vienna's shift from a trade-based economy to industrialization. Cultural life thrived, and theatrical performances gained popularity, particularly through Joseph Anton Stranitzky's Viennese impromptu theatre and its character Hans Wurst. In 1845, Vienna's population had grown to 430,000 people, reflecting the rise of the middle class and a blossoming of arts and culture. The Biedermeier movement influenced design, while composers like Joseph Lanner and Johann Strauss I popularized the Viennese waltz. Vienna's transformation continued with urban renewal projects. In 1857, its medieval inner ramparts were demolished to make way for the Ringstrasse, a grand boulevard lined with magnificent public buildings. Improved infrastructure, including clean water, the Danube regulation, and gas and electric utilities, spurred economic growth. By 1861, Vienna gained self-governance, and in 1890, its suburbs were integrated into city administration. The Gürtel Ring Road replaced the Linien Wall, and the city flourished culturally, with contributions from Brahms, Bruckner, Mahler, and operetta composers like Johann Strauss II and Franz Lehár. At the dawn of the 20th century, Vienna had nearly 2 million residents and was a breeding ground for influential ideas. Figures like Sigmund Freud, Theodor Herzl, and Adolf Hitler were shaped by their time in the city. The Art Nouveau movement flourished, led by Otto Wagner, Gustav Klimt, and Egon Schiele, while the Second Viennese School revolutionized music. World War I saw Vienna swell with refugees, but with the fall of the Habsburg monarchy in 1918, Austria became a republic. The 1920s brought progressive social policies, earning Vienna the nickname Red Vienna. However, economic and political instability led to the authoritarian rule in the 1930s. Nazi Germany annexed Austria in 1938, and during World War II, Vienna suffered heavy bombing and destruction. After liberation in 1945, Vienna was divided among Allied powers until Austria regained independence in 1955. Despite 20th century upheavals, Vienna remains a global diplomatic center, hosting organizations like OPEC, the OSCE, and various UN agencies. Today, the city blends its historic legacy with modern innovation, continuing its role as a cultural and political hub in Europe. With that kind of a background, is it any wonder that Vienna was on my bucket list? And today I want to share with you some of the wonderful buildings that I got to see where angels feature prominently. The first of these is a historic monument known as the Pestsäule plague column, which basically means the column of pest. The Wiener Pestsäule, also called the Trinity column, stands in Vienna's historic Graben Street. It was built after a deadly outbreak of the bubonic plague in 1679. This monument serves as a reminder of that tragic time and symbolizes Vienna's strength in overcoming hardships. As I already mentioned, in 1679, Vienna was devastated by a severe plague, and that plague killed tens of thousands of people in just a few months. During the crisis, Emperor Leopold I promised to build a monument if the city was spared from further suffering. After the epidemic ended, he kept his promise and commissioned several artists to design what became known as the plague column. However, due to artistic changes and political struggles, it took about 15 years to complete. The Vienna Pestsäule is a masterpiece of Baroque architecture, filled with intricate carvings designed by renowned architects such as Johann Bernhard Fischer von Erlach and Paul Strudel. Every part of the column has symbolic meaning. The base features scenes from the Old Testament, showing both God's punishment and mercy, reflecting how people felt during the plague. Above that, the 9 angel statues represent the 9 choir of angels. And at the top, a golden statue of the Holy Trinity, God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, symbolizes divine protection over Vienna. Now, in the 17th century, life in Vienna was uncertain, with constant threats of war, uprisings, and deadly diseases, and people often turned to religion for protection, hoping for divine intervention. Now, to seek God's help, authorities originally built a wooden plague column on the Graben, and this followed a tradition of creating Marian or Holy Trinity columns to ask for divine mercy. The design of the Pestsäule is rich in symbolism, with the number 3 appearing throughout. Think about this. The column, when you get to see it, is divided into 3 layers, with humans at the bottom, angels in the middle, and the Holy Trinity at the top. It has 3 wings, 9 large angels, being a multiple of 3, and 3 bronze scrolls. As you can see, the Pestsäule is rich in symbology, not just religious symbology, but also that of the angels. Not very far from the Pestsäule is St. Michael's Church and St. Michael's Platz. St. Michael's Church is one of the oldest churches in Vienna and one of the few remaining Romanesque buildings. It was built in 1220 and became a parish church in 1288. The church is located in one of Vienna's most beautiful squares near St. Michael's Gate at the Hofburg Palace. It used to be the church for the imperial court and was originally called Zum Heiligen Michael, which loosely translates to the Holy Michael. The high altar was created in 1782 by Jean-Baptiste d'Avranches. It features a stunning Rococo sculpture called The Fall of the Angels by Carl George Melville. This sculpture shows angels and cherubs falling from the sky, and it was the last major Baroque artwork made in Vienna. In the center of the high altar is an image of the Virgin Mary, known as Maria Candia, carried by 2 archangels. This image comes from the Cretan School of Art and was named after Heraklion, the old capital of Crete. The current front of the church was built in 1792 in a neoclassical style by Ernest Koch, which was a popular style during the rule of Emperor Joseph II. Above the entrance, there's a group of statues featuring winged angels and Saint Michael defeating Lucifer, created back in 1725. These statues were made by Italian sculptor Lorenzo Mattielli, who also created the Hercules figures at the entrance to the Hofburg Palace, right across from the church. The church's tall, pointed Gothic bell tower, built in the 1500s, has become one of the symbols of Vienna's inner city. St. Michael's Church also has a large pipe organ built in 1714 by Johann David Sieber. It's the biggest Baroque organ in Vienna. Apparently, a 17-year-old Joseph Haydn played it in 1749. Mozart's Requiem was first performed here during a memorial service for Mozart on December the 10th, 1791, after his death. Since Mozart hadn't finished his piece, only the parts that were completed were played. The church is also known for its Michaela Gruft, a crypt beneath the church. Aristocratic families had their own tombs here, accessed through marble slabs on the church floor. These slabs had family coats of arms, and bodies were lowered into the crypt through them. Thanks to the cool and stable climate in the crypt, over 4,000 bodies have been well preserved over the centuries. The next place that I'd like to take you to is the Kirche am Hof, otherwise known the Church at the Court. It is also known as the Church of the Nine Choirs of Angels, and it's a historic church located in Schulhof, not far from the Park Hyatt. It was built between 1386 and 1403, though its main facade, which faces the square, wasn't added until 1662. The church is located in Vienna's first district, the Innere Stadt, on the east side of the Am Hof Square. Before this church was built, apparently there was a smaller church dedicated to St. Pancras that stood on the site, and this was back in 976. Later, from 1080 to 1221, a Romanesque stone chapel replaced it. In 1386, Duke Albrecht III gave the castle and chapel to the Carmelite monks, also known as the White Brothers. They built a large Gothic-style hall church, which became known as the Church of the White Brothers in the Middle Ages. The church got its name, Church of the Nine Choirs of Angels, around 1568, when the Jesuits took over. After a major fire in 1607, the church was rebuilt in the Baroque style by the Jesuits. 4 chapels were added on either side of the main hall, making it look like a 5-aisled church. One of the chapels inside the church is the Judas Thaddeus Chapel, and this chapel was originally dedicated to guardian angels. Its altarpiece, created in the 18th century, shows Saint Judas Thaddeus with 3 angels. He is known as the Saint of Hopeless Cases, and people were so devoted to him that over 700 votive tablets have been placed outside the chapel since 1910. The high altar features a painting called Mary, surrounded by the 9 choir of angels. It was created in 1798 by Johann Georg Daringer, based on a design by Hubert Maurer. A fragment of an earlier high altar painting, Ascension of Mary, from 1709 by Andrea Pozzo, hangs on the right side of the choir. As you could probably imagine, it is another magical place where you can get to see these wonderful angelic representations. And the final church that I want to take you to, because I think you all know that I'm not so much into churches, but this church is nonetheless special, and that is why it has been mentioned here. It is called Karlskirche, or in English known as Charles Church, and it's a stunning Baroque church located on the south side of Karlsplatz in Vienna. It is considered one of the city's most impressive landmarks and the finest Baroque church in Vienna. Dedicated to St. Charles Borromeo, a leader of the Catholic Counter-Reformation in the 16th century, the church reflects both faith and imperial influence. The church's design was planned by Carl Gustav Heraeus, an imperial official, to highlight the connection between St. Charles Borromeo and his royal supporter. Above the entrance, a relief sculpture represents important virtues, with a statue of the saint standing at the top. This sculptural design continues onto the upper level of the building, which was a feature added by the architect Johann Bernhard Fischer von Erlach. One of Karlskirche's most striking features is its pair of massive columns, which are decorated with spiral reliefs showing scenes from St. Charles Borromeo's life. These columns are meant to resemble the biblical pillars Boaz and Jachin, which stood at the entrance of Solomon's temple in Jerusalem. They also reference the pillars of Hercules, a symbol of imperial power. At the church's entrance, angel statues represent figures from both the Old and New Testaments. Although Karlskirche is mainly a Baroque church, it incorporates influences from different architectural styles over its long history. The original church on this site was built in the late Romanesque and early Gothic periods, around 1220 to 1240. Now, there's a document that claims it was founded in 1221, but historians believe this was likely forged in the 14th century. Over the years, the church has undergone several changes, but its current appearance has remained the same since 1792. I do encourage you to go and see this beautiful Viennese landmark, because truly angels are a prominent feature on the front of this building. Now, moving away from churches, I want to take you to the Guardian Angel Fountain. In German, that translates to Schutzengelbrunnen, and it's located in Rilkeplatz, and it's not far from Karlskirche. There is an octagonal stone column, and this features a statue of a guardian angel with a child. 4 sides of the structure are adorned with fountain sprouts, each with a dragon figure bearing the Vienna coat of arms on its chest. These figures were cast by Anton Dominik Faunkorn, then working for bronze and iron caster Joseph Glunz, based on a design by Johann Baptist Preleithner. The use of iron in fountain architecture was groundbreaking at the time, marking the first instance of its application in a Vienna fountain figure. The fountain was commissioned by the municipality of Wieden, and the fountain was built with the encouragement and support of art enthusiasts within the community. It was designed by architects Eduard van der Nul and August Sicard von Sicardsburg. Historical records differ on its unveiling date. Some cite December the 21st in 1843, while others mention August the 30th, 1846. This discrepancy may be explained by the fact that Paulanerplatz initially received only a basin connected to the Kaiser Ferdinand water pipeline in 1843, while the full fountain was completed in 1846. Another beautiful angel landmark that again is worthwhile seeing. I want to finish today's episode with sharing with you a lovely story. When I was in Vienna, it was in the afternoon. I was there with my husband and we wanted to have a coffee because all of this sightseeing really does take it out on you. And Vienna is well known for these magnificent coffee houses. So we went and had to stand in a line because this coffee house is very, very popular. And we were ushered in to a table. Now, I'd like you to imagine a room that is quite large, but every table is closely packed together and every table is packed full with visitors, with people who are coming to have their afternoon coffee. We were placed at a table and right behind that table was this beautiful angel figurine. Now, I couldn't have selected that table if I wanted to, but it showed me that all the places that I'd seen, all the places that I'm sharing with you are absolutely right for sharing on the show because you get to see these magnificent landmarks, these magnificent places, and you might even find that it sparks your interest in a greater divine, in really connecting with that part of ourselves that has more meaning, the part of ourselves that is not just about the everyday world, but about in something magical. I'd like to thank you for listening to today's episode. And if you found this episode valuable, please share the information about the show with 3 people who you believe would find it beneficial. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a 5-star review on the platform where you're listening. You might even find yourself at a crossroad in your life, and if you are looking for guidance and inspiration, I'd love to help you find your path with a spiritual angel reading. Contact me on info@dagmarbryant.com for more information and to make a booking. Until the next episode, blessings, and may your life be filled with hope and inspiration. Hello and welcome everybody to today's episode of the Angelic Footprints podcast. Today I have another special guest with me. Her name is Lily Kosman. She is an energizing and uplifting speaker. She works with Christian moms in transition, looking to find the next purposeful chapter of their lives as their kids leave the nest. Lily is genuine, she's enthusiastic, and she wants to use her gifts in service to others, which then helps bring direction to people who come to her. The essence of her work is to provide a sense of optimism and the tools to know that we are able, capable, and worthy of making actionable changes to have a purposeful, happy, fulfilling life. She survived death 4 times and has resulting trauma, which means that Lily knows without a doubt that she was spared for a purpose. That purpose was to raise 3 daughters, including twins. Lily, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. Would you like to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Dagmar. I'm so excited to be here with you today. I'm just going to start right off by saying that I have always believed in angels. I have had a guardian angel since I was born because my twin sister and I were born 2 months early in 1963, and there was not a lot of care for babies that were born prematurely. She only lasted 1 day. I spent the first 3 months of my life in an incubator or an isolette, I guess they called it, an hour and a half away from my parents. And they would come to visit me. But of course, I was, I was in the care of medicine at that time, growing. And I always knew they told me, from the time that I could understand, that I was special because I had survived. My twin had not survived. Her name was Melissa. And when I was growing up, I have a younger brother who's 2 years younger. Shout out to Chip. Hey, buddy. I always told my mom that I could see Melissa when it rained, that in the rain, I could see her. I always knew she was with me. And when I was in school and they would say, draw a picture of your family, I always included her. So she was always my guardian angel and was just a piece of me that has been there.
Wow, that is such an inspiring story, knowing that your sister is with you and that she is your guardian angel. I totally, totally love it. Besides your sister, have you had any other angelic experience that you would like to share with our listeners?
Sure. I have had various forms of spirits and angels and visitations, out of body, lots of different things. But I will tell you that one of my first real human angel that came to me, I was in my early 20s. I was living in Chicago. I was not happy in my job. And I lived across the street from Lake Michigan. And when I had spare time, I would go across to the lake and I would take a run or take a walk. And I remember one Sunday, I was sitting at Diversey Harbor looking south towards the city skyline. And I was sitting on these big boulders that were sort of like steps. They were very, very big. They weren't boulders like round boulders, but they were like cement boulder steps, if you will. And I was sitting on one and I had my elbows on my knees and I was praying. And I was miserable and just wanted a change in my life. And I've always known that God hears and or spirit, universe, whatever works for you. As a Christian, I would say God or spirit. And so I was sitting there praying and it was crowded. There were a lot of people. The weather was nice, a lot of families and people milling around. And I put my head down into my hands, and you know how you can tell when someone's looking at you, you feel this presence. So I'm sitting on these riser boulder stair kind of things with my elbows on my knees, head in my hands, praying. To my 12 o'clock is the lake and then skyline. To my 9 o'clock is more lake because I was on a jut out. To my 3 o'clock is land. To my 6 o'clock behind me, a little bit of land and more water. I was on like a peninsula, if you will. So I felt someone looking at me and I looked over and there was a young man coming towards me. I remember it clear as day. He had on blue jeans. He had on a red Adidas zip-up jacket, like with the white stripes down the sleeves. He had on aviator sunglasses. His hair was brown and sort of in a blowback cut. This was like in the late 80s. And I would say he looked like Dan Fogelberg, if you remember that singer named Dan Fogelberg. So
Yeah.
I looked up at this young man and he walked by me. Now, there was not a foot of space in front of me on that level of the riser. He walked in that 1 foot space in front of me. And as he walked past me, I noticed he had dropped something. So I looked down, picked it up. It was a little bitty paper Bible, and it was called Fisherman of Souls. And I rifled through it, and it was select Psalms and Bible verses. And I thought, whoa, like, how did he know I needed that? And I looked to my left, which would be 9 o'clock on a clock, which was a little bit of land and water. He wasn't there. I turned behind me, which would be to my 6 o'clock, gone, vanished. I kind of looked around to my right side, which would be the 3 o'clock sweep, gone. I mean, you would see a red jacket.
You would.
He was completely gone. And it just chokes me up because that was an angel. That was a real life angel. I could not see his wings, but he was an angel. And he was in human form at that moment, dropping that little scripture book right in front of me on that little 1 foot piece of concrete.
It is absolutely amazing. And, the amount of times I have guests on the show who talk about angels arriving just at that time when they need to receive a message or they need to receive something from God, from spirit. And it gives me those goosebumps on my skin as I say that. And I've had that experience too. and I know how real that is. I know that this show is about bringing this kind of information to people, to others, so that they can see, wow, it's not just them. Maybe there's something else that is out there and I can connect into that too. And I just believe that is so, so powerful. Tell me, how would you say, Lily, that that has influenced your life, your angel experiences? And I know you've had more than one, I'm sure you've had more, but how have they influenced your life overall?
They have influenced my life in that each time something happens, each time I have an awareness, my receptivity increases. And I've always been open. I have always believed. I've always been aware of this presence that we cannot always see, we cannot touch, but we can feel it inside of ourselves. And with each type of spiritual experience that I have, it opens my receptivity and or reminds me, because we get distracted. We live in such a busy, go, fast-paced world that I think if we don't consciously ask ourselves and hold ourselves accountable for being mindful, being quiet, being receptive, that sometimes things pass us by. And I've always looked for God signs and angel signs for affirmation. At one point in my life, it was probably around 30 years ago, or maybe a little bit less than 30 years ago. I was feeding our firstborn child. She was in a high chair, and it was January, and an ambulance went down my street. I live in a very small town, 2,000 people. And I thought to myself, oh, Mrs. Smith died. Now, I don't know Mrs. Smith. I'm using a fake name here, but I don't know Mrs. Smith, but something in my gut said Mrs. Smith died. And would you not believe Mrs. Smith died? I knew it. It was crazy. And I started having these things happen. And I'd been told before by someone who I think was half angel and half human that I have a very good intuition. So I started tuning in. And when those types of things happen, I would write it down. And I'd say, well, what's the pattern here? What am I supposed to know? And it's that thing like when you think of someone and then they call you, or you think of someone and then they show up, you see them on the street or whatever, things like that. So I started writing it down to find a pattern, to say, God, what are you wanting me to know? And a couple of pages of note taking, and there was no pattern. So I said to God, what is it that you want me to know here? Because I'm not seeing a pattern, God. And I was told very clearly by the Spirit, trust your gut.
Trust your gut. Yes, absolutely. I'm hearing you very much. And I think that applies to our intuitive senses. And I think in a lot of ways in this world that we're living in, you're absolutely right. It is a very fast-paced world, but also in a lot of ways, people aren't taught about that sixth sense, that intuitive side of ourselves, because everybody values science and logic and the practical, whereas the intuitive side is so valuable. I'd love for it to be taught in school, in all honesty, because wouldn't we get so much further in life if we really were able to tune into that and the world accepted that as valuable? And I know when we spoke before we started, we also talked about asking about our intuition with respect to our angels and listening to what the messages are coming with that. Did you want to add anything about that topic that we talked about earlier?
Well, I would say right now just a couple things that have sparked that you have said. One is you talked about goosebumps.
Yes.
And whoa, like you can't just create goosebumps. So I would say to someone, when you feel goosebumps, that is your intuition telling you you're right on track. It's truth. I call them like truth bumps, because it means that you're reacting to something that is truth. So I loved that you said that. And then as we talk about angels, when I was in college, I called home crying about something, and my mom said, well, make sure you're praying. And I said, I have been praying, but God's not listening. And she said, I promise you God is listening. And I promise you, you're going to be okay. And I want you to know that you're going to find signs that God is listening. She said, God sends us via his angels pennies. And she said, you've heard of pennies from heaven. Doesn't have to be heads up. It can be heads down. But she said, start to notice when and where you find pennies, because that is God sending an angel with a sign to you to say, I hear you and it's going to be okay. And I'm telling you, I was probably 18 or 19 years old. And the rest of my life, I have had signs in the form of pennies delivered by angels, because there is no way that these pennies, like I would find them behind a copier at work. And I'm telling you, first of all, what am I doing looking behind the copier? An angel sent me there. An angel urged me, tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, go look over there. We're with you. We hear you.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I love it that your mother was able to give you that message. And I would just add to that, I love pennies. I love receiving pennies. And I always remember to say thank you. Definitely believe in that. Also, things like feathers. I find feathers in the most remarkable spaces. And as you said, you listened to Cindy's episode. No, it's not just her pillow that's let a feather go sort of thing. And there's also, I do believe that there's other signs, whether it's, you might have asked for a specific message and then you see a truck go by and the truck has exactly on it what you need. Like, just do it. It might be a Nike truck. And it's like, okay, I guess I should be starting my new business or moving house or whatever it happens to be, because that message has been given to you. I think it's so powerful. And when we start tuning into that with our intuition, when we're, as you said, expressing that gratitude and asking our angels, all of that just comes together so beautifully. We were talking earlier about manifesting. Did you want to add that now in this part of the show?
Sure. One of my favorite books is called The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, who was a Christian minister. He doesn't call it law of attraction in that book, but that's what he's talking about, is asking spirit, asking angels asking the universe, asking God to come and help you. And I believe that it's so powerful. There are vision boards that we can do, the intentions that we can set. And when I was listening to the episode with Shilpi, I was reminded, and Cindy had said the same thing about gratitude and saying thank you to your angels. When I read the book, The Power of Positive Thinking, Dr. Peele's take is, instead of asking God for help, thank God in advance and assume it is being taken care of. So in my prayers, I have sort of switched the focus. Instead of asking, I say, thank you for taking care of our 3 daughters, instead of, would you please take care of our 3 daughters? But I loved listening to those episodes as a reminder to call in those angels. I know it's going to be taken care of. Call those angels in. They're waiting. Law of attraction is when you put something out to the universe, something that you'd like to see happen, the more specific you can be with it, the more likely it is to happen in your life. So if you say, I want a new house, well, there are lots of different kinds of houses. But if we can be more specific, get a picture on a board and call in those angels to help direct us and guide us. And I was laughing because in your episode with Sally Ann, she was talking about God smacking us around. Love that, because that's what God has had to do. I have literally been called with a capital C twice by the Lord to do his work. And I had to be hit over the head with a 2x4 both times. Like, a little tap on the shoulder from an angel didn't work. A little smack on the shoulder didn't work. A little knock upside the head didn't work. It took a little bit more. But I do believe that there are angels waiting. And if we can remember to ask, if we can open ourselves up, it might not take a 2x4. It might come a little quicker, because they're waiting in the wings. They want to help us. And I have had a fabulous experience in a guided meditation. Would you like me to tell you about the angels waiting and what they told me?
Absolutely. And I'm sure our listeners would love it as well.
Okay, so a few years ago, I was on a business retreat, and there was a fabulous woman who was doing a guided meditation, and her specialty is ancestry and all the spirits and all the love and the people who came before us, who made us who we are. And we're who we are today because of all who brought us here. So we're doing this guided meditation, and she starts with, close your eyes and imagine a door, and you walk through the door. And I won't go through the whole thing, but she guided you, but you're the one who's picturing all this in your mind. And I was getting deeper into the trance of it. And, you block out everything else. And I found myself, I hope I can get through this without tears, climbing a hill. And at the top of the hill, it was heaven. And it was white and bright and beautiful. And all of a sudden, my grandma was there, my mom's mom, who died when I was in 8th grade. And she's been one of my guardian angels ever since. And she came to me. She was an angel, full-blown angel. And she said to me, Melissa's here too. She's over there. Can you see her? And I couldn't see my sister Melissa, but I knew she was there with my grandma. And my grandma said to me, we're all up here waiting. And this was after my second calling with a capital C to become a life coach and a speaker and to give God the glory in everything. And so my grandma said to me, we're all up here. We're waiting. Like, we're waiting for you to go do it. Like, what is holding you back? And I'm sure it's imposter syndrome, self-doubt, all those things that come in. And she said, we're waiting and we have something for you. And she gave me, in this trance I was in, a red heart. I'm going to show you a picture because it has shown up in my life 3 times. And the most recent time was this picture, which unfortunately our audience can't see.
Lovely.
When the angels guided me to this picture, and this was in a piece of mail, like junk mail. And my angel guide said, open that mail. And there was this picture that has appeared to me 3 times in my life. The second time I had imagined it once. And then the second time was when my grandma gave it to me. And she said, here, put this inside of you and know that we're all here with you. They're there. I mean, our angel guides, our spirit ancestors are all there waiting.
Yeah.
Wanting to help us and help us move forward in life.
Lily, thank you for sharing that beautiful story. And it's one of the reasons I've started putting meditations into the podcast as well, because, when we get into that very relaxed state, our subconscious mind can really help us to lift us and take us to those places where we're more likely to be able to listen, rather than just in our normal state where our conscious mind kind of takes over. And as we've already said, the busyness of the world takes over. So when we do learn to stop, slow down and take stock, we can really get those beautiful intuitive insights and perhaps even, like you, connect with our angels and our loved ones. Lily, thank you for sharing that beautiful story and your other stories. Would you like to tell us about a platform or something special that you would like our guests to know about that you have?
Oh, absolutely. I have developed a coaching curriculum called The Joy-Filled Heart, Finding Purpose After an Empty Nest and an Empty Heart. And I speak on this curriculum, and I also do one-on-one coaching. So if you would like to reach me, and I guess I should say before I say how you can reach me, part of this curriculum is learning how to tap into your intuition, how to find your purpose and your meaning in life. And you don't have to be an empty nester, and you don't have to even have kids. But if you're looking for that next purposeful chapter in life, you want to know what comes next, you want to serve, you want to be part of something bigger than perhaps what you're doing now or that you can even see right now. So we learn about seeking, about praying, about intuition, about assimilating messages. If you would like to find me and connect with me, you can find me on Instagram at Leigh, Leigh_KOSSMAN. And I'm also on Facebook at Leigh Kosman Speaking and Coaching. There's a hyphen between the Leilys on that platform. And also on LinkedIn as well. Same thing, Leigh Kosman Speaking and Coaching.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And to all of the listeners who have been listening to this show, I do hope that you find something that has been truly meaningful for you and that you get in touch with Leigh if you feel that she can help you on your next steps. Leigh, before we finish up, do you have any additional thoughts or things that you would like to finish up on?
Sure. Thanks for asking. I wanted to share, I think your listeners might like this if they haven't experienced it already. as you and I talked about pennies, they are placed by God's angels. I would talk to people about pennies, and many people would come back and give me hair-raising stories, like huge goosebumps of where and when they found pennies and how they came into their life. I also had people tell me about feathers. I had people tell me about moths or butterflies for sure. But one thing that I started hearing was, oh, well, I didn't find a penny, but when my grandpa died, I found a dime. Or when my cousin died, I didn't find a penny, but I found a dime. And after about 3 or 4 of those stories, I was like, okay, God, what is the significance of a dime, 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 dime? And then I thought, dimes from the deceased.
Ah.
And you cannot believe how many. My daddy is now gone. His favorite numbers were 2 and 5. And the day that my mom and I went to order his flowers, we came out of the store and there was a quarter on the floor, on the ground. And I said,
Wow.
well, it's not a penny, Mama. It's not a dime, but Daddy's favorite numbers 2 and 5. So it's a quarter. So it might not be a dime, but there will be significance. And as you spoke at the very beginning, Dagmar, it's so important to open yourself up. Our angels, our spirit guides are just waiting to tap us on the shoulder and roll us a penny or send us a feather. Know that there are no coincidences. There are none. Everything has meaning.
I totally believe that too. I basically say there are no coincidences. The amount of coincidences are so minimal, so few, that they're not really even coincidences, but there is bound to be something. And as you touched on before too, start paying attention to the messages. What am I supposed to learn here? What's going on? Am I supposed to be taking a different path? Is there a different purpose? And what are you trying to tell me? It is, you are absolutely right, all about listening. Lily, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been such a pleasure having you, and I really appreciate your time in being here today.
I was going to say thank you so much, Dagmar. This has just been an absolute delight. It's so nice to meet you and be here and get to talk about such an impactful, wonderful topic.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you again. For all our listeners, in the meantime, if you found this episode valuable, please share information about the show with 3 people who you believe would find it beneficial. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a 5-star review on the platform where you're listening. Until the next episode, blessings, and may your life be filled with hope and inspiration. Hello and welcome everybody to today's episode of the Angelic Footprints show. Today I have a very special guest with me. Her name is Natasha Randolph. She is the proud owner of Psychic Medium Natasha LLC. And as a psychic medium, Reiki master and spiritual mentor, she collaborates with spirit to help others release blockages, gain clarity, and embrace personal growth. Her mission is to demystify spirituality and healing, empowering clients on their unique soul evolution journey. She believes in authenticity, simplicity, and empowerment. No fluff, no gatekeeping. If you are ready to embrace clarity and growth, Natasha says she's absolutely happy to help you. Natasha, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you here. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I have a small business here in Virginia Beach, Virginia, but I work with my international clients as well. And a big focus of what I do beyond just my services is absolutely helping people one on one with their unique journeys and also just teaching, because that's definitely my passion. I guess what motivates me in my work is helping other intuitives, mystics, and healers like me on their path, trying to navigate, oh, why am I having experiences? What does this mean? What is in my ability, what can I do for myself, and just helping them piece that together and see those light bulb moments, like, is just amazing to me.
It makes such a difference, doesn't it, when you help someone with those light bulb moments? I totally get it. And sounds like we're on a very similar journey, Natasha. You had an angelic experience. Tell us a little bit about that. Our listeners would love to hear that.
Yeah, I actually have 2
Oh,
experiences to
go
share
for
with
it.
you. 2 completely different periods in my life, which was interesting. So, the first experience I will talk about happened actually when I was a little girl. I was 7 at the time, and during this period of my life, I was not a very strong, like, reader or even a speaker. It's just it was not my strong suit, and basically, I had a dream visitation is what I'm gonna talk about. I went to bed one night, and to me, it felt like any other day. It wasn't anything, like, crazy or, like, special that happened that day, but when I went to sleep, I just remembered that I felt myself inside of this big, giant, like, white room. That's, like, what it looked like to me, how I could describe it then. And it was almost like this big, white, vast space, but you can't even see where the walls are, but you could tell it just goes on, and it was just, like, light, and I was like, "Okay," and in my mind, I'm thinking, "I do not know where I am, but I don't feel fear for whatever reason." Like, I just don't feel the need to be scared. For whatever reason, I felt calm. So I was like, "Okay, I don't know what's happening, but I'm calm." And right as I walk to, like, the middle of what I think is, like, the middle of this room, there's, like, this light, and to me, it looks like a body of light or like a silhouette of light. And there was no words spoken, like, with our mouths, like, with our voice. But as I was walking towards this, like, light body thing in this room, the closer and closer I got to, like, this light and this presence, I started, I guess, getting these downloads or, like, these flashes of, like, these really big, long words that I've never seen, let alone could pronounce in my life. And it was like big words at the time, stuff like meditation, clairvoyance, premonition, like just these big words that I could not like remember on the top of my head, like by myself. And like as I got closer and closer, the words would go faster and faster and faster. And for some reason, by the time I got to touch this light, I woke up. But when I woke up, all of like this long list of vocabulary words was just in the front of my mind. Like it burned into my skull. And I'm like writing them down like as I see it in my mind. And then when my dad's asleep, passed out from a long day at work, I would sneak to his computer and I would type in, what does this word mean? And I realized it was all connected to intuitive abilities. So that was actually really at the beginning of my journey was I felt like that was spirit's way of reaching out to me to be like, "Hey, it's time for you to understand, like this journey," if that makes sense, because that really was it for me was that dream really just snowballed or domino affected into me really deep diving into, okay, why am I having these experiences? What does it mean? So that was the first
Wow.
experience, and I was 7. The second experience happened when I was 16, but the second experience is a lot more heavier than the first experience. So, when I was 16 during that time, I was going through a lot just personally with social circles and like friends relationships and just family drama stuff. And I was at a very low point with myself to the point to where I was actually trying to hurt myself. And the point of the story is that I actually was trying to take my life and I should have succeeded, but I didn't because something very traumatic happened. And my first thought was, I just don't have anything else to go on for. Like, I just felt like I just kept going on and on. And I took a bunch of pills. I took like 4 big bottle of pills. I didn't even care what they were. They were like huge horse pills. I just gulped them down. And like 30 minutes to like 40 minutes later, I could feel my body starting to be affected and get heavy. So I felt my body get almost like sleepy and heavy. And I just was not expecting to wake up. And once I finally did kind of pass out, I remember I was floating above my body And at first I was relieved because I was like, yes, it worked. But I remember floating up, and then all of a sudden, it's like I was floating up, and then all of a sudden this like presence or this being, which I recognized the feeling from like the first encounter. I felt like that presence again, that calm, strong, sturdy, but like protector. And that being looked at me, and almost as if it was a thought that I could hear. I saw that being look at me and say, oh no, not you. You still have work to do here. And basically it bopped my head down, like my spirit back into my body. It was like, no, it's not your time. Just boop. And I remember waking up in my body. I was covered in sweat because I guess that was my body's way of trying to release all them toxins. And I was just so heavy. And I remember the first thing I did was go to the bathroom and drink a bunch of water, and then I passed back out. But that experience really shook me because that's when I realized I had some purpose here. And even though I didn't see it then, because it was just so bleak then, I just knew, okay, there's something here for you. You have to like choose to like live and create a life that you want, and different, like there's meaning beyond this somehow, some way. So that was really a turning point where I learned I just could not give up. And at the time I didn't know why, but it really humbled me because I guess a part of me wanted to believe that I didn't have value here. But again, I was just under such a low point with myself. And I remember before I got boinked back into my body, I remember that there was other spirits that this being, this angel, this spirit was like, oh yeah, we're taking you. But the second it looked at me, it was like, it's not your time. So those are the two profound experiences that are like ingrained in my memory that I just can't unknow, unsee, unfeel.
Natasha, they sound like, by the same token, scary, but really fundamental experiences that have shaped who you are today. And it just goes to show how our guardian angels can have an influence in our life. And we may call them spirit, we may call it the universe. It doesn't really matter what name we give it. It's still our protector, as you said. Tell me, how would you say, I know that you're doing this work in terms of being a psychic medium, but how would you say that has influenced your life, those experiences?
It made me realize that beyond the things that we can see, there are other things happening behind the scenes. It just gave me, I guess, like one kick started my journey. It was more so like pointing at the doors to open. And then the other one was more so of like, hey, you need to understand that, you're here for a bigger purpose beyond you. And that really shook me because at that point, I just was not in tune with myself at all. And I had to learn how to like come back to me again. So it just really helped me, I guess, grow and heal as a person beyond just doing the work that I do. Absolutely.
Mm. And the thing is, you mentioned age 7 and then you mentioned age 16, and they're quite crucial points in our development. I mean, being a teenager is difficult at the best of times. And then when you've got those challenges happening as well, I'm glad that you're still here, Natasha, because it sounds like that you have still other people to help them with their purpose, help them with moving forward. And spirits helped you realize that. And I think that's absolutely wonderful. Natasha, tell me, do you have a platform that you would like to share how you can connect with people who you might help?
Absolutely. I have a YouTube channel that is more so informational, educational based, where I more so demystify spirituality and healing, especially for my intuitives, mystics, and healers like me, just trying to navigate their journey and trying to empower themselves. So I like to show people, here's what's out there. Use what works best or what calls out to you. I'm not telling people one way to believe or think or do, just more so of like, hey, this is what's available and out there. And if it resonates and calls out to you, why not implement it or try it or whatever? So that's the way I like to go about it. And you can find me on YouTube, just Psychic Medium Natasha. And from there, you'll find all my videos.
Oh, lovely. And, this industry, and I've been in this industry for a long time, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I think something like your YouTube channel is definitely needed to help demystify some of the myths and the fact or fiction that is out there. So well done, you. Tell me, Natasha, how can people connect with you? Because I'm sure our listeners, after that brilliant story, will have some connection. They'll be able to identify with an aspect of it. How can they get in touch?
Absolutely. Well, of course, you can find me on my website, www.psychicmediumnatasha.com. But of course, I'm also on the socials. So I have a Facebook page, that's Psychic Medium Natasha LLC. And then I have my Instagram and Pinterest, which is the same handle at Psychic Medium Natasha. And then, of course, my YouTube channel, Psychic Medium Natasha. So you can find me somehow, some way online.
Well, Natasha, Psychic Medium Natasha across all platforms keeps it nice and simple. And I love the keep it simple philosophy. So thank you for making that really easy for our listeners to get in touch with you. Thank you so much for being on the show and sharing your story. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here. I do hope, as listeners, if you have any questions for Natasha, that you will get in touch with her. You might like to have a reading with her, or you might have just things that you want to know about spirituality, even getting in touch with her via her YouTube channel. Like I said, thank you again so much, Natasha. For our listeners, in the meantime, if you found this episode valuable, please share information about the show with 3 people who you believe would find it beneficial. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a 5-star review on the platform where you're listening. Until the next episode, blessings, and may your life be filled with hope and inspiration.